as well. Another of our local teams will be on the road. It is 7-2 Solon at 7-1 Waukon in Class 2A. Waukon, a Class 2A state championship game representative last year. Solon was in the 3A state championship game. So pedigree here without question, Ryan. These teams have never, we talked about this the other day, I think, these teams have never met before.
Yep, and separated, since they've both been really successful for the last, 4 or 5 years, probably going back a little bit further than that, but
yeah,
been separated by classes a lot during that stretch and haven't played. But this is one where if you're just a fan of football on this side of the state, I think this game excites a lot of people. Anytime that you have two teams that were in the Dome last year, especially when they switch classes, it's kind of a juicy matchup where you see how they stack up against one another this year. Mm-hmm. So again, another exciting. I'm going to be at this game, assuming I can find Waukon.
Head north, young man.
Yeah, I've been up in that area a little bit. My geography up there isn't great, so I'm going to give myself plenty of time to get there. But excited about this one too. Obviously, I think we can get more into this, but I think Solon has its work cut out for it. Definitely, this everything that you look at on paper, and a team that's been in the state championship game last year. Waukon can play, and I know they lost some key pieces from last year, but one thing I wanted to point out to you, Rob, that we can talk about a little bit more is if you look at their rushing stats, really their stats in general.
I'm looking at their yards per carry.
Especially their rushing stats. It reminds me of Mediapolis. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of when we prepped for that game where it really jumps out at you where, we've mentioned this. Solon's faced back-to-back games in the playoff, they face a running back with top 5 in 2A and rushing a lot of yards, over 200 yards a game, and it jumps right out at you. This kid's got 1,400 yards or 1,300 yards. You got to stop this guy. And you pull up Waukon, and there's no guy like that, and you're kind of like, okay, here's a kid with 800 yards. Their back's got 800 yards. Their quarterback has 600 yards. You're like, all right. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the yards per carry. And it's 10.6, and then they have a kid with 225 yards that's at 12.5, and their I back that leads the team in carries has 9.7. It is a team they're at 8.6, and you're kind of like, they're averaging
when you look at it, Ryan,
almost a first down a carry.
How good Solon is at running the football this year. That's kind of what they, it's hung its hat on. It averages 5.9 yards per carry, which is really, really good.
Right.
But 8.6 is obscene.
Right. That stood out to me. And then also the same thing. We saw how that played out where you can kind of do the math. There's some other things that can contribute into that. Maybe you're trying to rest a guy here or there, some bumps or bruises that we don't know about, where maybe a guy's not injured, but, and they've played some lopsided games. But I anticipate it being something where I have not done the game by game yet on Ethan O'Neill, who's their running back, who's a good-sized athlete. Creed Welch, I remember from the Unidome last year, their quarterback, really good-looking athlete, 6'3", 6'4", 200 pounds. Just one of those guys that's in total command of what they're doing. But I mentioned it, their running back, 82 carries for 794, 9.7 yards a carry, 14 touchdowns. I have not done the game by game, Rob. I probably will do that tonight. Whatever his season high is for carries, I'm guessing he gets close to double that against Solon. It's going to be kind of that Anthony Eiley in the Mediapolis West Branch game where it's like he's averaging 9.5 yards a carry and had around 100 carries, and then he goes for 36 that game when they really needed him. So hopefully Solon is ready for that. I know I mentioned it every week. They don't overcomplicate it this game. Solon's been really good stopping the run too. They held Independence to 75 yards last week, Rob, and their I-back was average, or Marcus Beatty was averaging 205. So they're giving up 118. No, excuse me. It's better if you update your spreadsheet. They're giving up 105 a game. They've given up more than 100 3 times. So they're giving up 105 a game. Yeah. So it's like, that's where, this game's going to be won at the line of scrimmage. We can cut through it, but there's more to dissect here. And I have a couple other keys, but it's going to be won at the line of scrimmage.
And something to keep an eye on here. And it's, you get, wonky statistics in seasons like this, but you look at Waukon, they've got 21 takeaways, 8 fumble recoveries, 13 picks, opportunistic defense. Needless to say, as you said, it's a line of scrimmage and being able to take care of the football at this time of year.
Yep. And the other thing, that was one of the things I had circled, and what goes with that a lot, Rob, is 22 sacks and 64 tackles for loss Waukon has.
Yep.
They have a D lineman, a senior, Brennan Sweeney, that's got 11 sacks, and that ranks, I think, 3rd or 4th in 2A.
My guess is they get leads. Teams are pressed to try to come back.
And they're teeing off.
And they're just teeing off.
Yeah. So that tells you they're going to be aggressive too. I mean, again, it reminds me a lot of the Minneapolis thing. And the West Branch coaches had told me that they blitz from everywhere. 64 tackles for loss is, you're probably taking some chances. That means you're really good up front, right? But not all of that is defensive line penetration. You're taking some chances, whether that's run blitzes or you're sending extra guys and you're trying to cause chaos, a little confusion. So that's something to keep an eye on too.
It looks like they've only attempted 1 point after. I
saw that they're a 2-point conversion team. I saw that too. Yep. And they're right at 50% too, if you look at it. So, I mean, assuming they would make all their PATs, they're probably right in the same. But again, when you do see that in high school football and you see more of it, the smaller classes you go down, it's teams that feel good about where they're at up front that usually will take that chance. And that's obviously what they're built on. So the one other key, and we can move on, the one other key in this game, Rob, and I stole it with West because of the weather and the storm thing with the offense. But Solon's got, you have a 2-hour bus ride, 2.5 hours, probably, 2:45, 3 hours on a bus. It's going to be an early day. You got to get out of the first quarter. And I'm not saying they're going to go up there and get blitzed. That's not what I'm saying, Solon people. You got to get through that first quarter and then you feel good about it. You got to negate some of that, what could be disadvantaged stuff. Playing on the road, having a bus ride. The deeper that you get into the game, the less that becomes a factor. You got to get past that stuff. And what makes it extra important, I was going to say extra more important. I'm on my second Mountain Dew today after volleyball. Rob, this is amazing to me. They've allowed Waukon was down 7-6 to Monticello after the first quarter last week in a game that they won, I think 42-13 or something.
46.
But that was the first points they've allowed in the first quarter all year. They've outscored opponents 104-7 in the first quarter.
Yikes. So that feeds to what we were talking about. They get a lead and then they tee off.
Yep, and that's why I knew where you were going with that. And then in the first half, it's 262-24.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Solon's not built to come back. Solon's not a team that's built to come back from a big deficit. So that would just be a terrible formula.
They've played some lopsided games. You mentioned this year some wonky stats. You get a couple games where you're up 50-0 and all of a sudden.
Right.
But when you go through it, they were 0-0, I think, with Decorah, which is their only loss. They lost to 3A Decorah. And if you really want to see how crazy it is to try to do this team played this team and it was close and this team played this team, Solon people, if you're into this, and you've probably already done this, go click on Decorah and go down that road where you see that they played a 1-point game with Waukon, because they also – Decorah beat West Delaware, gave them their only loss, and West Delaware beat Washington bad last week. But there's some other doozies in there too where, I think Waukon beat Waverly, who maybe lost to one of those. It's a great reason why in sports don't rely too heavily on the, third, whatever you call it, the third degree here where you're onto this team and played this team. It's matchups and all that stuff. But there's a path here for success for Solon, Rob, and it's winning first down. It's winning early the whole game. It's winning first down and winning the first quarter or playing even the first quarter. It's getting to halftime, and it's not putting yourself in those situations that Waukon has wanted to put teams in and put teams in all year. You got to be ahead of the chains against a team that wants to bring that type of pressure. And you got to make it a second half game because, frankly, they haven't been in a lot of them. They haven't been in one since week one. And to turn that into a strength for yourself, but It's going to be running game and defense. Solon people, you're probably bored of my analysis, but that means that you have a team that's really good at doing those. Boring football is good football, Rob. It really is. Because every coach, I don't care if it's the Oregon teams that started the whole jet tempo thing, the Chip Kelly teams, if you can dominate somebody up front and play good defense, you're still going to do that. You're just going to do it in a different way. Solon's been able to do that, and that's their path to the Unidome against a team that wants to do those same things.
And winning, however it is accomplished, is fun and not boring. So that's kind of the recipe.
You're right.
There.
You're exactly right.